I'm pretty sure we've all noticed that every surveillance law follows the same pattern. First comes a sympathetic justification, children's safety or security. Then comes the infrastructure that goes far beyond that justification. Well, the UK, they just announced that Apple and Google must implement scanning directly on your device. That would mean your photos, your camera, or your messages, right? And to scan encrypted messages like those in WhatsApp or Signal, the scanning has to happen on your device before that message is even encrypted. And after hearing that, I believe we can all agree that this is no longer ordinary content moderation. That's building the surveillance infrastructure into everyone's phone. And the thing that really gets me is that the people who are pushing this know exactly what they're doing. I mean, I'm talking about the types of people who would weaponize your own principles and your values against you. They use this unique framing, the think of the children, as an argument that you cannot easily push back against without sounding or being framed as some kind of weirdo until you stop debating the children and start asking the questions about this infrastructure itself. But before I get ahead of myself, let me tell you exactly what was announced on June 8th. The UK government, under Prime Minister Kim Starmer, is pushing Apple and Google to implement device level solutions on smartphones and tablets across the UK. What does this mean practically? They want scanning across your camera, messaging apps. Those apps would include WhatsApp and Signal, your photo library, search, and file sharing. For children, this would be on by default through age verification. Adults can opt out, but only after verifying their age. Companies have 3 months to comply voluntarily. After that, legislation, fines, and as a last resort, criminal liability for their senior execs. Now, here's the technical part that matters the most. To scan content in encrypted apps like Signal or WhatsApp, the scanning can't happen on a server somewhere. It has to happen on your device before the message is encrypted. This is called client-side scanning. Your your phone analyzes your content before it even leaves your hands. That's not a that's not the platform moderate. That's not the content moderating the content. That is practically your own device reporting on you. Now, before I go any further, I want to be honest about something because this is where a lot of people get this conversation wrong. CSAM is real and a serious problem. It's no hypothetical. Children are genuinely being harmed. And here's the frustrating reality for law enforcement. Encrypted platforms are being used to share this kind of material. End-to-end encryption means that even with a court order, investigators often they can't even access this kind of content, and that's a genuine problem with no easy answers. The technology being proposed involves on-device detection, things like AI nudity classifiers or perpetual hashing. In theory, it doesn't read your private messages like a human would. It's supposed to just flag known harmful patterns of obvious nudity. Parents, they genuinely want better tools to protect their kids online, and governments have a legitimate responsibility to protect said minors. And I'm not dismissing any of that, and neither should you. If you were to dismiss the child safety argument entirely, you would have lost us, and you'd be wrong to dismiss it. The problem isn't the goal, the problem is the method and what that method quietly builds for everyone else. So let's talk about what this actually creates. First, the technical reality. Client side scanning weakens the security model for everyone. The moment you build a special exception, even a well intended one, it becomes a vulnerability that can be exploited by hackers, foreign governments, or let's say bad actors. Signal, they called this proposal a dystopian combination of age verification and scanning and said it endangers us all. They've made it pretty clear before they'd rather pull out of the UK entirely than break their security promise they've made to their users. And then there's false positives. AI based nudity detection isn't perfect and never will be. Innocent family photos, medical images, works of art, or cultural content can all get flagged. And once something is flagged, um, that decision leaves a trace. But the deepest problem isn't technical, it's historical. Like the Patriot Act, it was sold as a tool against terrorism. It ended up being used for all sorts of unrelated cases. The UK's own Regulation of Investigatory Powers Act was meant for serious crime, but local councils used it to spy on families over school catchment areas. NSA Prism was justified as a national security, but it became mass surveillance. Every single time, the same pattern repeats. The infrastructure built for the most sympathetic purposes imaginable gets expanded, not always because of evil intent, but because the infrastructure now exists. And once it exists, the question no longer, the question stops being, should we build this? It becomes, what else can we use this for? And that question always gets answered. Now we get into the part that bothers me the most. The think of the children framing, one of the most effective political arguments ever constructed. And I mean that seriously, not as a criticism of the people using it, but as an observation about why it works well. You cannot disagree with it without sounding like you don't care about children. And I believe that's by design. When you argue against surveillance infrastructure, they say you're arguing for child harming. When you point out the technical flaws, they say you're prioritizing privacy over children. Every counter argument gets reframed as not caring about children, and most people, they understandably they back down. Here's the reframe I want to offer. The question was never, do you want to protect children? I mean, everyone does. That is not the debate. The real question is, does this specific method actually protect children? And not argue the evidence says no. We've seen VPN usage spike by over 1,000% in some places that introduced strict age verification laws. People, including minors, they flee to less regulated spaces that often have more malware, worse security, and fewer real protections. The laws designed to protect children push them somewhere more dangerous. So when they say think of the children, I want to ask, have you thought about where the children actually go when you do this? Because the answer isn't they just stop accessing harmful content. The answer is they find a harder, riskier way to access it, and everyone else loses their privacy in the process. And I've been tracking this for a while now. Age verification is spreading across the EU, the UK, and dozens of US states. VPN restrictions to close the escape routes, App Store controls, and now device level scanning, each step justified by the same argument, each step building the same infrastructure. We went from prove your age at the door to we're checking what's inside your home. That is not natural progression, that is the escalation. And each step makes the next one easier to justify because once you've accepted age verification, cracking down on VPNs feels logical. Once you've accepted VPN restrictions, App Store controls feel logical. And once you've accepted those, device level scanning starts to feel like the next reasonable step. And it's not. It's the culmination, the endpoint of a process that started with we just need to verify ages and ends with your device reporting on you. And the justification at every single step, the children. I want to be clear about something before I finish. This is genuinely difficult. Child safety is a real value. Privacy is a real value. Both deserve protection. Right now, children are being harmed by exploitation, and adults are being pushed towards broader surveillance. And I'm not pretending there's an easy answer, but I am saying this. When the solution to child safety requires building scanning tools directly into everyone's phone, weakening the encryption that protects journalists, dissidents, abuse victims, and yes, even children themselves, and creating infrastructure that has never, in history, stayed limited to its original purpose. I that is not pure child protection. That's surveillance. That found a sympathetic justification. Apple and Google now have 3 months to respond voluntarily, And after that, the UK government has made it pretty clear legislation, fines, and potentially criminal liability will follow. Watch what happens next because I believe what unfolds will tell us a lot. And in the meantime, remember, these are the people that are using your own values and principles against you. The least you can do is notice.